because you can quickly get output from AI with extreme confidence, like the extreme confidence of an ignorant man.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast, which is built for revenue leaders who aren't afraid to say they're stuck and they need a real answer. I'm Karl Ortmans, and on today's episode, we're going to dive into the topic that everybody's talking about, but with a twist. We're going to talk about AI. Today's podcast is sponsored by the fantastic people at Virtual Causeway. Imagine your sales team spending less time chasing and more time closing because buyers already know your name before that first call. Well, that's exactly what Virtual Causeway does. They help B2B companies get found earlier in the buying process by the right people through the right channels that actually influence decisions today. Well, the result? It's fewer cold calls, it's better conversations, and pipeline that moves faster. You can visit them at virtualcauseway.com, and don't forget to mention the show for a special rate. Okay, your teams, they're using AI right now without your permission, without IT knowing about it, and without any guardrails on what data is walking out the door. Now, my guest today has been living inside that problem and building the framework to solve it at one of the largest business communications company in the world. My guest today, Michael Lamb, Senior Director of Marketing Technologies at Mitel. Now, he's been there for over a year, and he's seen the company go through 4 major acquisitions: Estrada, Mavenir, Shortel, Unify, and he personally led the digital integration work for each of them. Now, that's the kind of experience you can't manufacture. You either know how to hold a marketing tech stack together through an M&A cycle, or you just don't. Now, today, he's working on 2 things that are going to define how enterprise marketing teams compete over the next few years: building an AI governance framework that actually gets IT and InfoSec to say yes, and standing up an answer engine optimization strategy so Mitel shows up when buyers ask ChatGPT or Perplexity a question, not just when they Google it. Mike, my friend, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for being here.
Hey, Karl, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Me too.
That's a heck of an intro, man. That's like, I need to play that recording back for me when I'm feeling bad about myself, when I haven't figured out, like, I'm deep into problems. And it's like, oh, let me play this back.
I don't know if I have a career in this, but it's funny. Most people have said, like, somebody said, can you read this at my funeral? Or, hey, can I take you on the road and you introduce me everywhere I go?
Yeah.
But I obviously, I'm a football fan and etc. And if you ever see Jason Kelsey and the Kelsey brothers and his 92 percenters, and he gets so fired up, and you see Travis being like, woo, I would love to get to that, but we're talking about other things that maybe it's not as exciting as some.
Maybe we'll get there today. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's kick off the conversation and let everybody, hey, what are the verticals or industries that you work in today? What are the selling motions? What size companies do you work with?
So our focus at Mitel is around enterprise right now. And, obviously we serve a full spectrum. We've been over 50 plus years in business. We serve a full spectrum of audiences. But I think right now our big major focus is enterprise that we're going after. We do direct sales. We do partner enabled. Partners are a huge part of our business. We're in the telecom industry. Unified communications, we're out trying to solve those communication platform problems for people. When you start to think about that industry, people are like, oh, whatever. It's like, it's not super sexy, but it may not be, but it's part of a core infrastructure that when it's not on and it's not working, things shut down. And not little things, like big things. Infrastructure problems shut down. 911 goes down. You can't get a hold of the water department. There's, nurse call systems go down in hospitals, being able to get a hold of people in those kind of situations. All that's built on telecom foundations. And so that's the stuff we bring to the table is that foundational piece. And then we have all the cool apps and things that go on top of that. We've got a bunch of really cool, exciting things coming out, a lot of AI related things as well. For workflows and all kinds of really awesome apps that sit on top of that to make life better for everybody that's out there trying to communicate with their teams, their workers, their frontline staff, their executive staff, and the like. So
Nice. Mitel's always been on the cutting edge of things, and one of the questions actually, when Mike and I were doing the prep, I was asking him, "Oh, are you seeing a shift in more to mobile and handset?" And it kind of, he corrected me to say, in a hospital or in a fire department, if the phone line doesn't work, what do you do then?
Yeah.
And I thought, got it.
Yeah.
I didn't consider it.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
think about it, right?
Yeah.
So how we actually got to today's topic is Mike and I had a chat, like I was saying, and I said, "Hey, what's a successful revenue initiative you've ever led, or an existing challenge you're solving or currently have solved?" And he said, "Well, I mean, we probably could have just recorded the whole podcast when we did that because it was just so fluid and it was a good conversation."
Sure. Yeah.
And it was just in the prep, we just got talking about AI in the enterprise. And that's the thing that he's trying to solve right now. And I think a lot of people are, because there's so much that's changed. If I kick this off by asking this one loaded question, let's just say it this way. If AI is still in its infancy and it's changing so fast, and as fast as it is that we're looking at it, is there an argument that enterprises should just wait before adopting?
That is a very loaded question, but it's a good one. It's one that I've kind of weighed heavy as I've tried to embark on AI. So, being in the situation I'm in with what I do with marketing technology, we need to be on the forefront, right? We are trying to squeeze efficiencies out of everything. We're trying to make every lead count. We're trying to make everybody convert where they need to. Everything that we do in digital marketing is about efficiencies. So AI, when it came along, was like the number one way for us to do that. We went all in on my team. So I'm a huge proponent of AI. I use it every single day. I love it. I think there's massive potential for us, but right now there's big risk in investment in it, in deep investment in it. And the reason for that is it's changing so much so quickly, like you said, every single day. Every week there's some new thing that comes along. And right now, the people that are adopting it and using it are usually one-man shops, if you will. So the success stories you see on LinkedIn, I'm gonna probably draw this conclusion to like a line between these two things, is that it's kind of similar to the fitness community. So in the fitness industry, there's all these people that post this clickbait stuff that are like, give me, here's your one secret that your trainer doesn't want to tell you to get abs. And it's like, no, there's no secret to it. Like, there's no secret sauce. Like, you've got to do really hard work to make things happen. And so everybody's getting drunk and excited on this idea of, I can go automate my entire marketing team with a $20 or $200 Claude subscription, right? Yeah. The problem you're going to run into when you start to do stuff like that is that it's changing so quickly that all the things you're building are really about they have to be done by technical type people, right? So in an enterprise environment, you have a spectrum of people, and probably in smaller companies as well. Startups might be a little bit different just because of the forward thinking motions that people have there. But you have this entire spectrum of people that learn and interact with technology differently. So if I roll this out in an enterprise and I say, hey, everybody, we're going to start using AI today, and we're going to start doing things on AI, and here's your $20 a month Claude subscription or Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, here it is, go use it. About half those people, maybe less than half those people, are going to be people like me and probably like you, where we learn by breaking and doing. And when I was a kid, it goes all the way back to when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, my dad used to give me broken devices of some sort. He worked in computer sales and things like that. So his whole career. So he'd always bring home like a broken computer and be like, here, go in the garage and take it apart. Right. And that's how I learned how things worked. And so I'll date myself here, but I would take VCRs apart. I'd take record players apart. I mean, I got a big record collection back here, so that adds to it. But I'd take all that stuff apart and I'd figure out like, okay, what's broken? And so where I'm going with this is that we have a lot of people that will do that and they'll jump in and go after it. And that's great. And you want those people on your team, but you have a whole bunch of other people that need a little bit different learning style. They need to be able to approach it differently. And this like command line that you see, or this box that's empty, is a blank page problem for them. They're looking at that box and they're like, what do I ask? What do I do? What am I getting out of this? Right. And they don't know how to prompt. They don't know what to ask. They don't know where to start. And it's paralyzing. And they're like, you know what? Rather than spend all this time trying to figure that out and get bad results, because maybe they tried a few times and then because they don't prompt it well, it comes back with really bad results. And it's like, well, this is crap. I'll do it myself. It's faster. It's easier. That's what I've done my whole career. It's a muscle, right? I have this muscle. I have this ability to go develop and build these other things that we have to figure out. How do we bridge that gap in an organization for enablement? And the enablement between those two can be different. And again, the forward breakers, if you will, the people that go out and just break stuff, you just hand it to them and let them go, right? Give them some guardrails, which I want to talk about some governance stuff to talk a little bit as well, but give them those guardrails and what they can and can't go do, what they should be doing, and then go back to these other folks and then figure out, how do we bridge that gap between that blank, prompt to, you have, the ability to go do something really cool with a tool that you now understand how to use.
Mm-hmm. I really like how you're calling this out, and the governance is one thing that I really would like to get your opinion on. I have a couple of questions for you, but actually,
Sure.
one of the things you've said is, and actually, this is going to date me as well. I used to work at a company called BlackBerry, or Research in Motion, and you had a BlackBerry. And when Blackberries were going, you had code lines and you'd have software iterations that would go to companies, and they would either say, hey, this is built for us, we're comfortable with this, we'll deploy it. You saw Android and the evolution of iPhone. And so there is guardrails that you have now around what revisions can be launched and which ones can't be. If I remember something, if I can't remember if it's exactly this one, but I want to say ChatGPT like 3.5 caused issues, and they had to downgrade to 3.4 before going to 3.6 or something. There was a version issue that happened.
Yeah.
So even in that, as an example, how are you seeing others, or even inside of your teams, how are you looking at those? Oh, we have a new code line, because it happens every day. If you use Claude Cowork on your computer, click to relaunch, click to relaunch, click to relaunch. So there is a question inside of here is, how are companies handling the revision control, or even maybe the revision control to say this is okay for us, or it's not okay because it broke other things?
So the model part of it is hard, right? Because you don't know until you start to use it whether or not the model is going to be good or bad, or it's going to cause problems. So that's one that we're still trying to figure out. And I don't think if anybody comes along and says, hey, we figured this out, I mean, they're the only ones, I think, right? Our biggest thing is that we spent the time and attention that needed to be put into place to build skills. And we have a whole library of skills that are in a central place that we manage, that is used by the teams. So that when they go in to start to do something, and let's say a product marketer goes in and says, hey, I want to build a brochure for this product, it's using those skills that have some foundational information around brand, tone, and voice, some writing style guidelines that we have, what we don't want AI to say, because AI loves when you say, hey, go write me something cool about a product. It loves to overpromise something that the product can't do.
What? Really?
Yeah.
It says buzzwords and like,
yeah.
I
mean, you can, if you've used Claude for any amount of time, this is funny. So if you use any Claude at any point and like for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or whatever, and you start to read the outputs, you will immediately start to see Claude everywhere. It's like the Matrix. Like, it's like you start to see the lines of code, and it's like, okay, people will put something in front of me. I'll get an email from somewhere and I immediately can go, that was built with Claude. Because you can see the patterns of how it writes and the like verboseness of it, and like the over promising, and there's the big buzzwords, like you said, and the M dashes and all that stuff. And people are just pumping crap out. But But back to what we were talking about, it's like, so we built everything with skills, right? So we have this huge library of skills. We invested the time to do that because what we saw immediately was that no matter what model you used, if we didn't have those skills, we were getting inconsistent outputs. So if I used it, you used it, somebody else used it, we were getting some random things. And a lot of it has to do with, how it learns how you like to communicate. So maybe when you're chatting with it, I'm very polite to AI. I have this
I am
dystopian
too.
thing.
I say thank you every time. Can
Yes.
you please? Like, it's manners. I don't know. I don't want it to
Yeah.
come back and be like this Karl,
Yeah.
terrible person.
Yeah. That's the Canadian in you, I think.
Might be.
But yeah, I mean, I have that. I'm like Terminator 2. It's like, okay, well, they're gonna come back and at one point they're gonna attack us, and they're gonna be like, not that guy. He was nice to us.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, you have all these different interactions, and that gets stored in some kind of local, memory of like who you are and how you like to interact with the tool. It's little basic skills and stuff. So what we did was to try to make it so that it was uniform, so that anybody in Mitel in our marketing teams could go in and interact with it. And it works to varying degrees, right? Because again, it goes back to the prompting piece. And that's the hardest part, is that prompt. And back to the enablement piece of this, of like the people that go in and break, I've come up with a formula for prompts that I like to use. And it's very thorough. And it probably, if I want a really good output from something the first time, I will spend 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, crafting a prompt. I can use AI to do that. I can go back and forth with it to build that prompt. But then what that does is it gives me all of the details in that prompt that need to be answered that I can give off to the AI and say, okay, now go do the analysis. Now go create the thing I need you to create. Now go do this work. And where I think a lot of people are challenged is that when the other group of people that are struggling with trying to get meaningful things out of it, is that most people don't realize how many assumptions that AI is making about what you're asking in order to answer the question. Mm-hmm. And a good example of this week that we had is we were playing around with my team. We were playing with some design stuff, and we were just kind of testing some limits. And we do this a lot. We do these like hypothetical things in the AIs in order just to kind of see what the limits are. It's not about like solving a specific problem. It's just figuring out like, how do we talk to AI? What is the limits that it has? What are the assumptions it's doing? So one of the things we did was he said, hey, design this thing for us. It did. We said, okay, now that you've done that, you have full liberty to design any way you want. You know what the core question was. You know what the core design was. You have full autonomy. You can do anything you want with it. Mm-hmm. It came back and turned the original design into dark mode. That was it. And I was like, okay, that's not wild. If I had handed that to a designer and said, hey, designer, which I was working with at the time on this, hey, if I gave you full autonomy to do this, he's like, it would not have come back as dark mode. It would have come back as like colors, some whimsical idea, anything. So then we started going through this kind of process of like iterative process of like, how do we break it? How do we push it past its rut? Because it's kind of gets into these thinking ruts. And I think all AIs are getting to that point. And so silly enough, he's like, well, what if we just fed it a picture of a sausage and said, use this as inspiration? Because that's nothing to do with what we're doing. It's just some random thing. He's like, let's see what this does. So we fed it a picture of sausage. What does it do? It picks up the colors from the sausage and says, and then changes it to the colors. Mm. Now, again, some of this is prompting. So, people might be tearing this apart at this point and be like, well, you prompted it wrong. Yeah, probably so. But the point of it is that we started saying, well, what assumptions did you make about this? And it came back and it gave us all these assumptions as to why it did this. And it was probably like 30 things. And it was 30 things that we would have needed to answer or tell the AI to get a different outcome. So when I go into a designer and I say, hey, use this sausage as an inspiration, a designer is going to look at it and go, well, where's a sausage made? Well, maybe German, depending on where they are in the world. I work around the world, the globe. They may be like, okay, it's German. Okay, how's sausage made? What's made in a smokehouse? Okay, what's in a smokehouse? Smoke. Okay, what utensils are associated to it? This. Okay, where do you eat sausage? Well, you grill them on a grill. Okay, maybe they have a picture of one of those green egg, smokers in their head, and it's like, okay, so now the theme of it has turned to barbecue. So maybe elements of that are now barbecue elements. It's like those kind of things. A human will make those leaps and jumps and make those kind of things, but an AI right now is not thinking that way. And you have to go tell it specifically, here's what you need to do. And the reason we did this exercise is we're concerned about the outputs of all of the things we're doing falling into a rut and following into a continual cycle of building the exact same thing over and over again. So no matter what we feed it, we can say, hey, here's all the data, here's all the information. It falls back into a rut of thinking. And the theory behind what I'm going to here is if you don't get very specific about what you're saying to it and very specific about the skills and the information you plug into it to say you need to do these things. This is what's important to our brand. This is what's important to our business. This is the key differentiators for our products. This is our positioning. This is our ICP. And you don't have all that really specific information available as part of the prompt or part of skills that it needs to reference. What you're going to do is ask the AI, and it's going to make the same assumptions. When your competitor does the exact same thing and asks the very generic question, it's going to make the exact same assumptions with their product because it's the same type of product, right? It's a similar, same thing. So let's say we have a call control platform from Mitel. We have a call control platform from our big competitor. They basically, at the core, do similar things. There's differentiators between the two. And we say, make us something that looks different. Both of us are going to get the exact same results eventually on our webpage and the exact same type of content. It's just going to have my name on one and their name on another. And so the skills and all the pieces that you feed into it and knocking down what those assumptions are becomes the critical work that everybody, I think, is missing right now, because you can quickly get output from AI with extreme confidence, like the extreme confidence of an ignorant man, right? It's like, here you go. This is it. And you're like, sweet, this looks great. And you copy paste and you drop it into your next campaign. And your competitor probably did the same thing. Right. And both of you have crappy content.
The human in loop is still so important right now.
Yeah.
And I've heard horror stories, and I think I've told it on the podcast, where a classmate, a cohort mate from AI and go-to-market school through Pavilion had his CEO set up a Mac Mini, OpenClaw, gave full read-write access to the entire revenue operations, like everything in RevOps. And the CEO got really upset. Like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Why is this happening? Why is it? He's like, I don't know. It's thinking on its own, and it's doing revisions in its own time. And he said, I actually don't know what we changed when to have it documented that was the revision. That was the point in time, because it's just making changes as you go.
Yeah.
And so like I'm using that as sort of the proxy here, because the sausage thing is super relevant, because garbage in, garbage out. And more now, what I'm finding with, here's the exact way to prompt. Well, the prompting has changed, and how you look at it. Are you asking it the right questions? Are you giving it context? Are you giving it, what your desired outcome is going to go? And then how are you communicating with it? All the things you were just saying, I totally agree with. And then you get into the question of like, well, what tool are you using, and how is the best way to prompt with them? And what does that look like, and how does it go? And I think there's also another thing that in the enterprise specifically, and maybe you have an opinion on this or a viewpoint from talking with others, is like, hey, what am I allowed to upload and not upload? Because that is another one where, how do we hold to the governance and the guardrails? Yeah. What can we upload? What can't we upload? am I allowed to take my entire database and drop it into one of these LLMs and say, I know it's not going well, or maybe it's probably not the right thing to do yet?
Yeah. So governance, the word governance has a bad PR, in my opinion. As soon as you say governance, people are like, oh crap, that stops progress. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think where with the AI initiatives, and again, this is all stuff we're trying to figure out, everybody's trying to figure out, nobody's got this fully figured out yet, but you have to go early from where I'm at. I'm going early and operating above board with everything. I'm being fully transparent with our security team, anybody that wants to talk about what we're looking at, anybody that wants to look at any of the work we're doing. It's fully above board across the teams, our data protection folks, our legal teams, all those. I'm trying to put this stuff in front of them and saying, here's what we're doing. Here's what good we think good looks like. And we need your support. How do we support this? And how do we go and enable the rest of the org or other people in our groups to be able to do these things? And so where I think governance has to change, the mentality of it is away from here's what you can't do to here's what you can do. And I think if we go into a mechanism of saying we are agreeing on this set of data, these use cases, and this tool set, and here's how you will do this, so that we know we've vetted these things. Now you go do whatever you want. And the reason for that is that the tools, the way I would not want to be a CTO, a CIO, a DPO, a CISO. I wouldn't want to be any of those O's right now dealing with this, because it is a big shift in how they have to think about things. Previously, apps would come in and say, here's an application, here's a product, whatever. It's been through all the InfoSec stuff. They've got all the documents. They've got all those things. Everything's there. The AIs don't have any of that, right? They have some level of it. You can get some agreement language and things like that. But, if you just upload a spreadsheet into ChatGPT today of your company financials, I've heard horror stories that stuff shows up and people, if they ask it, right, if they go and say, hey, how is this happening? Maybe they've got some better controls over it. I know that was early on when we saw some of that stuff happening in the news, but that's the questions that they're asking, right? Of like, what guardrails are those systems putting around it? Well, you're not going to go talk to a legal department there. So legal department to legal department, they're going to be reading terms and conditions that you are click through terms and conditions, because it's $20 a month for the platform, right? So they're trying to figure that out. So what we want to do from my perspective is start to use governance as a speed tool. Is we want to go in and say, these are the things that you have that you can go do. You can sign up for Claude. You can use Replit. You can use this data set in Snowflake. And the outputs, where you store the outputs need to be here. It's basic stuff, right? Really lightweight basic stuff. On top of that, building a lightweight registry for people to go build stuff. Because today, on a Monday morning, I can come into the office and say, I've got a problem. I need to figure out how to forecast something. And it would be so great if I had a little app that I could plug in this spreadsheet export from Salesforce and drop it in there. And then it would forecast and do all these things for me. By Wednesday, I can have that app. And nobody's the wiser.
Right.
Nobody from IT's had to look at it. Nobody from legal's had to look at it. Nobody at all has looked at it. So we have to start making it where people can self-report, but not in like a litigious, like shutdown way, right? We want people to self-report and say, hey, I built a thing and it's doing this function for me. Here's what it is. And here's, again, the approved data set. I'm using the approved tools. I'm using the approved, databases, all that stuff, right? And just a quick little registry of that. And I think what we're going to be able to see is that then the IT teams and the CISOs, security, they're going to be able to look at it and say, okay, here's the kind of things people are solving and looking to solve and trying to solve. And here's the data sets around that. Let's go hone in a little bit more on that and see if there's something else we can do there to put some better governance and make sure things are happening. Because as you said in the question, it's like today people are doing it. you can send out all the emails you want that say don't do it. You can say all the policies you want that don't do it. But it's so easy to answer questions quickly that are really hard to answer normally or take time to answer normally by simply downloading a data set, dropping it into an AI, and asking it to analyze it. Mm-hmm. And you get an amazing output. In most cases, it's amazing.
Yeah.
There's obviously some cases where it's not, where the human in the loop needs to come back on a lot of stuff, because I do see a lot of reports come back from people where previously the analysis would have been one slide, and now I'm getting a 40-page report that's Claude branded of like the full analysis. And I'm like, ain't nobody reading that. Go back to the slide.
Yeah.
Give me the highlights, right? So, again, the approved things, like finding those approved paths to building stuff and encouraging people to do it, but letting people self-report, make sure there's a registry for it, because the speed part of building AI stuff it's the table stakes now at this point. Like, doing stuff fast with AI is table stakes. Everybody can do it. Anybody can do it. It's the decisions of what do we build, how do we build it, how do we do it securely. Those are the things that are going to be the differentiators. What do we build and what do we don't? That's the thing that's going to have to come from some governance.
There's a few things you said here that I maybe tie together as we continue this, because I do like this. There really is a moment in time aspect right now with AI, because it's a moment in time that we're facing. It's a moment in time that I have an issue that I need to solve something, so I did it. Is that a short term? Is it a long term thing? What does it look like? Right. Even how I built the platform that I built is Reps. I started because it came from a problem statement. I used a few different tools. I built it to a position. I was like, oh, now this is actually something more. But now I have this tool that I can leverage, and others are using it as well. But that was a problem statement from a moment in time, and it continued to evolve. The flip side of that is inside the enterprise. This is where I'm curious to see how this is going to evolve, because I agree with you. If you're in any sort of like in InfoSec, CIO, or legal, or technology, or whatever, you've got a really hard job right now, especially picking. It feels like you have to pick the right horse, right, to run with. And there's horses that are starting to show up now. As of right now, Anthropic is clearly pulled ahead from ChatGPT. Perplexity's coming. Gemini is coming. So you have other tools that are out there, but you have this moment I think we have a moment in time situation as of right now, which then brings me to the question of like, okay, now there's AI tools. Well, who has the ownership of it? And if there is that ability to go do things, what I like what you talked about is we built it in skills. So those skills can be adapted across the organization. But if companies don't have a belief or a view or a vantage point, whatever the word you want to use, on what can be done and what can't be done, the company could be flooded with these AI tools that are their own standalone thing, but don't actually talk to each other, but are ingesting data constantly. And now you're going to have a whole bunch of disparate systems. And now we've gone to a whole different thing for teams and companies to try to figure out, well, Mike's got this thing and Karl's got this thing. They do something similar, but then there's, John has this thing over here too, that they're kind of the same, but they don't want to change and whatever. So how do you how are we going to handle this emergence of tools and I'll say tools that are created from AI that are not going to potentially open up any security issues? Because like you said, the data, if one of the tools has access to Snowflake, that's your entire company database, and there's a breach. What do we do now? And how do we know?
So let me back up to the beginning of that statement around the apps and building those. So this is something I've thought about quite a bit. And it used to be shadow IT was the problem, right? So you go sign up for a $20 a month program somewhere, or you download an app, or you start using Slack when your company says you should use Teams, right? And you start doing things over there. It's like all these shadow IT programs and things. because I have the ability as a single contributor in a company to go in and build an app that solves my business problems, that's a massive risk for an organization
Mm.
on multiple levels. So one of the things that we've thought about in our framework is how do we take those things that are ideas, proofs of concept, or smaller group problems and promote them into a enterprise supported framework and environment. So let's take Replit as an example. You can go and you can find any of these other kind of app. I'm just picking them because it's the easy one. You go build your app on there. It's a proof of concept. Give somebody a path to say, this is a business function for me. This is important to my business. And this is how I'm going to run my business in my functional group. I need a path to promote this into the enterprise environment and make it relatively easy, but have support for that. So have an actual environment where it lives as a full application. With that, you have to now start defining how we're going to support it, right? So you get it moved over and you have an update. Well, now we haven't thought about where we store code, right? Do we have common code repositories? Do we have Git environments? Things like that where other people can work on them. Are we doing shared projects? Again, because AI has allowed me to silo it to an extreme level and solve problems that should be and have historically been solved by teams.
Right.
It's also cut down on letting a problem that you have on Monday mature before you have a solution. So previously you could come in and be like, I have this thing and I need to solve this problem. And it goes through a maturing process because it's past the meeting where you identified the issue. You can walk out of that meeting and start building. Previously, you got to write requirements documents. You got to bring some teams together. You got to let it ends up being several weeks, months, whatever, quarters to mature a problem into actually here's a solution. Right. And in that process, you probably are going to identify, oh, well, somebody else is already solving it. We already have a tool maybe that solves this problem and you just don't have access to it or didn't know it existed. You know, there's all those kind of things. So I don't know that we're never going to, right now for a while, going to be able to solve the issue of Karl building something that works for him that's looking at similar data and Mike building something that works for him that's looking at similar data until we have the conversation of here's where you support it, here's where you register it. And by the way, look through the registry, pre-search. You can use AI for that, right? If you put some descriptions of what it is that it's doing and, you know, have AI maybe compile a handoff document of some sort that you upload into the registry of the thing, the project you're working on, and then have something go through and search all that and say, like, what exists today, right? Is it, and also start to look at, is it a thing that you should build or should you just go buy the solution, right? It's easy to go and say, I build. I can go build pretty much everything in our marketing tech stack with AI. Like there's probably one or two things that would be hard for me to build, but most of it, we could just go build with AI over the next year. And then we have the only cost we have is AI tokens, which arguably may end up being the same price as the app, right? Yeah. But what you want to look at is certain things that are critical to business functions. You're buying security, you're buying peace of mind when you buy some applications from people. So yeah, Mike might be able to hack this thing together and use AI to vibe code something. But if it becomes central and core to how we're running our business or core to measuring KPIs, should we look at going with a vendor that's built an entire business around trying to solve that problem and manage that problem, right? And I think those are important conversations that we need to have openly with everybody as we go to build these things. Because again, look, I know for a fact that people are vibe coding all kinds of cool stuff. I've seen some of it pop up in meetings and be like, here, this is cool things, whatever. I'm not here to tattletale on anybody, but I know it's happening. And again, I think a lot of it is because in an enterprise environment, it's hard to get people in a motion of more of what would be in a startup, right? And I think people are operating in that way with AI, and enterprises want the bigger, heavier this is the policy, and it works for everybody. And I don't think that's going to work. And I think we have to shift to, again, here's the supported way you can do this, and allow people to do stuff that feels dangerous, feels icky to those security folks and the data protection people, and they're like, no, don't do that. But do it within some guardrails, right? Just let them go.
There's something you said, and there's actually a comment I'll make. I like you said that it's allowing AI is allowing enterprises to operate like a startup once again, because you can test things.
Yeah.
But I also hear you say this, and I don't know if I'm way off, but it almost sounds like what you're doing with Mitel is you're effectively creating an app store for AI inside of Mitel. If somebody wants to create something, are we maybe, and or maybe there's the question, are we going to see like an AI app store for people that that develop certain things and say, hey, I really like this, here you go, and they can go inside because we're talking about Mitel AI, and I can see all those apps just like you do on your iPhone, as an example, or Android, whatever you use, and go, oh, I'm going to see all these apps. Is that maybe the way we're approaching this, or maybe we're going towards?
I don't know specifically. So I'm not, the apps I'm talking about, I don't want to get myself in trouble here. The apps I'm talking about are for business usage, right? So these are not customer facing things. What they're doing on the product side, it could be. I mean, I think that might be a situation that pops up. Thinking about enterprise level, like AI adoption, I think, we had talked about this before in a previous conversation, was about the need at this point for something that sits on top of the AIs. And I hate to add more layers to things, but in the example of the internet was around for a long time before people adopted it. And you could communicate through the internet with command lines and prompting in very technical ways. It didn't take adoption until somebody built the browser. And then once they built the browser, then next came websites. Then next came that were flat, and ugly. And then it came more. And now there's apps running on it, websites, right? Like all of that stuff has evolved to put an easy front door to a very complex back end to make things work. And I think that's where AI is going to have to go at this point, is somebody's going to have to come along. And this is probably the next disruptive thing, is some sort of browser or some sort of interactive thing that sits on the front that helps you interact with all the various AIs that maybe you have subscriptions to, or free ones or whatever, that helps you interact with those in an easy way. So it puts a button that does a really complex problem by pushing a button, because that's what they do in any kind of application you have out there, right? And those are the kind of apps that I'm trying to build for the business function within our marketing teams, is building very complex and repeatable things behind a button or a couple of choices. Like, choose, you want an email, cool, like we'll build you an email campaign. Okay, what's your audience? Okay, click, 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 click. There's a couple of buttons we click, and then we hit submit. And behind all of that button clicking and radio buttons and selections is a set of very specific and complex rules, prompts, skills, information, data pools, all this other kind of stuff, so that the marketer can just go and say, I don't have to think about all that. I don't have to mess with that. I have very specific choices, and I hit enter and go. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with the AI app store piece. And I imagine more companies are going to think that way, of having those type of apps that are like, hey, I need a sales app or forecasting app. And because you have the ability to kind of personalize it, you can say, well, yeah, here's the foundation for that app, but here's 3 choices that you can now make to make it custom to you, to make it feel like it's Karl's or Mike's, right, app that I'm working with. And it answers my questions the way I need them answered, versus, how it might have to be answered for another sales leader or marketing leader or whoever, right?
Yeah. I really like that. I'm trying to make complex problems repeatable behind a button.
Yeah.
That I have not heard somebody say. It goes to something I say many times. Simple is very hard. And the things you're doing right now is you're trying to take the really hard to make simple. But if you're doing the work in the back end, your front end teams can move so much faster and remove that. complexity. Remove the
Yeah.
complexity so you can operate with speed, and that really does seem where the conversation's been. Really realizing that we're 45 minutes in, Mike, and I said I'd get you out of here an hour, and so I'm almost failing you. I apologize. If we try to, I mean, I have more questions, but maybe for another time we can do
Sure.
maybe we can do episode number 2 or part 2. But I like to ask everybody. Everybody likes new and nobody likes different. When you do both at the same time, it can cause friction or uncertainty. So for people thinking about how they can level up their AI usage in a more structured and simplistic way, or enterprising AI, I don't know the best way to say it. What are 2 or 3 actionable things you'd say, hey, go do these things or look at this, go down this path and you're going to be in a good spot?
Yeah. It's about foundation. Um, you have to go. AI is a massive multiplier. It can multiply good, and it can also multiply bad. And you've got to spend the time up front to define what your foundation looks like. What information do you need in order to get good outputs? And if you spend that time to do that, and it's going to feel like you're walking through quicksand a lot of days because you just want to get to answers, and AI will get things fast and it'll help speed this process up. Work with an AI to help you develop this stuff, but develop that foundation of information and skills that are necessary to tell your brand story and to help you up level the things you're doing. So if you go after that, that is like the number one thing where you start. It doesn't matter which AI, but to your point earlier, pick one and hitch your wagon to it. Like if Gemini is the one, then go all in with Gemini. Don't chase the exciting announcements. Like every week, somebody's coming up with a new one. Right now, again, Claude is the front runner, it feels like, in the environment, and everybody loves Claude. Well, in a couple of weeks, it may not be Claude.
Yeah.
Some kid in a garage in his mom's basement, whatever, might have come up with the next AI that's going to blow everybody away because he learned off of Claude. Maybe even Claude helped him develop the next one, right? Like, I mean, that's the ecosystem we're in, right? It's just crazy. It's Wild West right now. Pick one, stick with it, and just go all in on that one. Don't bounce around. I will say, don't use Copilot. That one's terrible.
Well, yeah,
Hopefully,
and
not
I
a
mean,
sponsor.
even they've come out and said, "Hey, it's for what
Yeah,
did they say? It's for entertainment purposes only at this
yeah,
point."
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not a great look, but
yeah.
anyways,
And then embrace it. Like I think that's the other piece of it. Embrace that it's here. Embrace this change. Embrace the speed in which it'll operate. Be cautious of that speed. Put intelligent human interactions in the loop where you can make sure that you're making the right decisions, because you can get really fast and really far down a bad idea because you've built on bad data, bad decisions, and then you have bad output, and then you've got to restart the whole thing.
yeah.
And it's because you can go fast. So the differentiator for enterprises, the differentiator for anybody isn't speed anymore. Like everybody can do something fast. It's the decision quality. It's your ability to decide, what do we build? What do we not build? What do we pause on? What do we double down on? And where do we go with the decision that we want to make and how we're trying to solve it?
Hmm. I really like that. The foundation, it is what I've heard lots of people say. It's garbage in, it's garbage out.
Yeah.
If you don't define what you're looking for or what this good looks like, it's going to make its own decision. Going back to the sausage comment, here's a
Yeah.
sausage. Oh, I changed it to be dark, or now it's brown, or whatever the color was.
Yeah.
Um, the pick one, I do agree with, because we're seeing, like, go pick one and go with it. The changes are happening, and I quoted an example and on the podcast, I think it was like Sridhar Padini, where I talked about in the AI go to market school how last year ChatGPT was like the number one by a long shot, but the one that's made the most growth at the time was Gemini, and it makes sense because Gemini built into Google Shops, etc. And then now we're seeing the evolution of Claude and Perplexity, and you're starting to see them show up in other places. I think we do have to embrace it, and that precision will beat speed every time. And
Yeah.
right now is, if you can be very specific, it'll help you actually go faster. Slow is fast and fast is slow.
That's
Is
right.
kind of what it feels like. So Mike, this has been so much fun. I think we could talk for hours, and we likely will. But if we don't sort of guardrail ourselves,
Yeah.
if somebody says, "Hey, I want to learn, I want to follow Mike, or I want to learn a little bit more," where would you tell people to kind of pay attention to you?
LinkedIn. I try the hopefully the URL popped up there.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's a good place for me for this stuff. I've been trying to post more things about it on the topics, more thought leader type pieces out there and opinions on things. Also, just to kind of learn from other people when they're like, "Hey, your opinion's terrible." It's like, okay, well, tell me why it's terrible. Let's go. Like, give me some feedback, right?
Yeah.
Because everything's so new and all that. So it's fun to interact with people on those posts and but yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn and we can stay connected and chat AI enterprise or just marketing ops. Like you're going through a merger or an acquisition. I mean, hit me up. I've been through a bunch of them. I consolidated a lot of systems. And I don't have too much gray hair, and I have some of my hair still. So,
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah. Funny. Mike is somebody who, I've had the pleasure to get to know Mike. Actually, it was way back in the day with Vidyard, and we were doing some cool stuff with video, and he actually, I think I might have given him some gray hairs when we did the Mitel live stream using
Yeah,
our
live
platform.
streams. Yeah.
That was one of the first ones, but he is somebody who, in my opinion, has been on the forefront of technology. He's looking at things in ways where he's trying to make it better, faster, smoother, and much more repeatable. And you kind of heard that through our conversation today. And he's somebody that if I question or, hey, how are you thinking about this? He's typically has a viewpoint on it, and he's typically right. So I mean, I do look to him for advice, and it's been a long time since we've had a real depth conversation up until the podcast, and it was just like old times. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you allowing me to do this and our friendship, and it feels like we didn't talk for years and we just jumped right back in like it was the day
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. I loved it. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to a whole bunch more conversations
Me
on the
too.
podcast, off the
That's
podcast,
right.
everything.
I gotta
Yeah.
get him for a round two if you can't tell. So
Yeah.
that's gonna wrap
Sounds
up
good.
another episode of the Revenue Problem Solvers podcast. I want to thank Mike for sharing incredibly invaluable insights today and some strategies you can clearly put into action. Remember, success leaves clues, and every revenue problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need the right conversation to find it. Until next time, it's Karl with the Revenue Problem Solvers, helping you turn your obstacles into your opportunities. Thank you for investing your time with us today. We'll see you in the next episode.